Kleptomania from 1993 is my VHS watch for the week. I saw a trailer for this on another VHS tape that I watched recently, and it looked intriguing enough to actually pick it up. This movie is very hard to find on the internet, and at first I thought I would have trouble even recommending this movie because I couldn't find it anywhere. However, I did find a rip of it on Daily Motion, so I downloaded that and uploaded it to this channel. So if you actually want to watch this movie, you can right here on YouTube. And as I was the 34th person to log this movie on Letterboxd at the time of this recording, you can be the 35th. This is an interesting flick about two women. One named Diane, played by Amy Irving, is kind of a wealthy socialite, but she's not in the best situation with her husband and family. She's a little depressed, a little lonely. And our other main character is Julie, played by Patsy Kensit. Julie is a homeless person, very down on her luck, who supports herself by doing pickpocketing and shoplifting. And when the two women cross paths, Diana is brought into Julie's world in ways that she wasn't expecting, and the two form an unlikely bond. I enjoyed this movie a lot, and I think it's a little bit ahead of its time because we have these kinds of movies now where people are in seemingly good situations in their lives, but they have some kind of problem at the core of their soul that they compensate for by acting out and doing bad behaviors. I also like that, like a few of my previous VHS watches, that this is kind of gritty New York City in the early 90s. I thought the performances by both main actresses were very well done. And like I said, this film really touches on themes like loneliness and depression in ways that are very common now. But when I was looking at reviews of this movie from the time, some of them were saying things like, why is this rich woman so unhappy? And you could tell the whole thing was just going over people's heads. So I'm not saying it's some kind of masterpiece that's lost to time. But like I said, if you want to check it out, it's on this channel on YouTube now, and I'm not monetized, and it's already copyright flagged, so I won't see any benefit from it except for showing it to new people. 100 Meters is an anime movie about running. My wife and I went to the theater and saw it, and as we were watching it, I was just glued to the screen. I really love this movie, and I was really curious how my wife would feel about it, and when we got out of the theater, she told me she also really liked it. Very simply put, the movie is about two young men who are on a journey to run the 100-meter dash as fast as they can, and their different approaches to it. This is similar to a lot of sports movies that you've seen, but it does avoid many of the cliches that are common to sports movies. For example, there's no romance. When a couple of female characters are introduced, I thought, okay, are we going to go down a route of romance here? But there's none of that. It's just about these young men and their mission to run 100 meters and to be elite. I really love movies that show people at the top of their game or trying to get there and trying to be elite, although I find that they tend to focus on the dark side of pushing one's self. For example, The Red Shoes or Black Swan. With this film, there's also none of that. A lot of the movie just consists of our two main characters as well as a few other competitive runners elucidating on their philosophy, and it's all so well written, and each character has a unique but valid perspective on how to be a better runner that, again, just listening to these guys talking, I was glued to the screen. Now, that's not to say that there's not action. It's a movie about running, and there are some amazing scenes of these races going on. And there was a lot of rotoscope work done to the point where you will almost forget that you're watching an animated movie because it looks so realistic. I was almost in disbelief how great this movie is and how much I loved it. Movies like this are the reason that I watch so many movies. Most of the movies we watch are mediocre or just fine or whatever. 100 Meters is one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and I cannot wait to watch it again. Else from 2024 is a French science fiction movie about a pandemic wherein the people who are afflicted with the ailment of the pandemic start to meld with their surroundings or what they're touching, the furniture or the bed sheets or the wood in a wall. Now, it's kind of interesting. A couple weeks ago, I reviewed a movie called The Animal Kingdom, which was also a French movie from a couple years ago, where it took me until I was talking about the movie for YouTube to realize that it was a pandemic film. With this one, there's no mistaking the metaphor because it's basically a retread of the real-life events of the recent global pandemic, just with this new twist of what the affliction actually is. The story focuses on a man who just had a one-night stand, and when the lockdown starts, his one-night stand decides to kind of crash at his place as the lockdown is starting, and they're kind of stuck together. He's kind of an ineffectual, soft nerd kind of character, and she's a manic pixie dream girl-ish character. I really liked a lot about this movie, but it had this weird effect on me where I was mentally checking in and out of this movie. I think there are some real spikes of interesting things going on that then just linger for way too long. And when I watch movies, I give them my undivided attention. My phone is not even in the same room when I'm watching a movie. So when I say I was mentally checked out, I wasn't trying to be. I wonder if this film would have been a lot better if it was re-edited, but I really have no idea. So it is kind of a tough recommendation because while I didn't love the movie, it had some really imaginative special effects and some amazing visuals overall, but it just felt too sluggish in parts for what it was trying to achieve. So in the end, I gave it a middle-of-the-road rating. Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion is a comedy from 1997 that I have never seen until now, though I remember when it came out. And this is one of those movies that, growing up, there were certain movies that came out where our friend group or our family or whatever would just decide that movie looks too stupid, and nobody I knew was interested in it. Fast forward to today, I have more refined tastes. I have an appreciation for Mira Sorvino especially. And I was on TikTok a couple weeks ago and I saw a clip from this movie and I saw Mira Sorvino playing the Romy character, and just the way she talked, I said, I have to see this movie. She famously puts on this very unique inflection or accent for this character, and it's almost addictive listening to her talk. So the movie is about these two kind of airheaded women who live together in Los Angeles. They discover that their 10-year class reunion is about to happen, and they want to go to it, but they want to present themselves as more successful than they actually are. So they make up a story about being businesswomen, and specifically they claim that they invented Post-it notes, which is a very funny recurring joke throughout the movie. And of course they discover that their friendship was more important than portraying this kind of successful facade that they felt they had to create. I went into this movie very much thinking that I would love it, and I pretty much did. Mira Sorvino is an atomic mega babe, and the rest of the cast are no slouches. I'm not especially a fan of Lisa Kudrow or Janine Garofalo, but I also like them both in this movie. I really appreciated that there is a lot of non sequitur humor written into this movie, meaning kind of off-the-wall things that don't really make sense or are referencing anything that's going on are used as jokes. Think like a Tom Green kind of situation, but in a very, very much smaller dose than Tom Green. Also, I appreciated that the movie was mostly wholesome. There's really only a couple like PG-13-ish jokes. It's not a very vulgar or dirty movie at all. And it's not afraid to be silly. I wish it was a little bit sillier. That might be my only criticism of it. But as a 90s movie that will give you nostalgia for the 90s, and because it was their 10-year high school reunion, they went to high school in the 80s, so there's all these flashbacks, and most of the licensed music in the movie is 80s music. It's a movie where you can really double dip on the nostalgia. I noticed the Blu-ray of this movie was going for very cheap on Amazon, and it was an instant buy to add it to my collection. Under Two Flags from 1936 is a movie I watched for one reason, the cast, because this movie stars Claudette Colbert and Rosalind Russell, which I believe this was the only movie they were in together. They're definitely two of my favorite actresses, especially Rosalind Russell, and they were both great in this movie. The story revolves around the French Foreign Legion stationed in Africa, where a sergeant in the Legion has an affair with Claudette Colbert's character, and she works in a kind of cafe hotel kind of place where the soldiers stay. But then there's a love triangle that develops with Rosalind Russell's character, who is kind of a debutante who is also visiting the area. I thought this movie was pretty good, but I can see why it's not a highly regarded classic that everybody talks about, because it is paced a little bit slowly. Nothing that would put you to sleep or that you would get bored of. It just feels like as the pieces are falling into place, it's taking a little longer than it could have. I did enjoy the subplots between Sergeant Victor and his commander and the whole thing that's going on, because the Claudette Colbert character is also involved with the commander. So there's kind of a double love triangle going on there. Also, I was surprised at the action scenes towards the end of the movie. These were the kind of scenes that just have hundreds of extras riding around the desert on horses, shooting at each other. It was all very spectacular, and I really wasn't expecting that. Much like Kleptomania and Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, Under Two Flags really thrives on the strengths of its two main lead actresses. And if you're a fan of Claudette Colbert and or Rosalind Russell like I am, it's definitely one that you should check out at least once, and it's widely available. You can find it here on YouTube. And that's going to do it for another show. Thank you for watching to the end. If you like these short movie reviews, I have a whole playlist of them on my channel. I do this every week. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next one.